All right, we're going to start at 7:03.
Here it is. I found the thing. Account management, account settings, meeting tab. In meeting, basic, click co-host.
That's simple enough. I'm not going to worry about it right now.
It's probably a mute all button too if you got the pro account. Participants button, mute all on the participants panel.
Local 414, changing address 1439 Farm Avenue, callers across the street, no position. I have it, thank you.
You need to move out and what you move over.
We're not on video.
I know, but everybody else is.
Oh, wait.
Now we're going to start in 1 minute.
Call from Shinda.
Colleen, I'm going to mute you. Oh, there we go. All right, it's 7:03, so I suspect we're going to have a lot of people on that want to talk. So let's get started. You know, I'll start off. I think this is the first meeting that we've had since a bunch of us met with Michelle Wu and BPD and Kelly. Well, actually, it was Erica. You know, in Blanche, you know, at the end of June. And at the time, BPD, we asked, so just to summarize, we asked Michelle Wu to help get more resources assigned to D4 so that they're doing a great job, but, you know, there just aren't enough people to do the job that's necessary. We asked for her to lead to get a recovery campus, which is, and well, those are the main things that we asked for.
Andy, you have you have two different.
Nikki, I think I'm gonna mute you. I'm not. Why is there feedback?
Here too. From the stop.
I don't know why feedback.
I'm not sure.
Shoot. Yeah, I'm gonna drop and join and see if that fixes it. I'll mute myself and unmute. Hello? No.
If you have two screens going,
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't have all those normal things going on. Damn it. This is a new setup.
yeah, I have feedback as well.
All right. I'll try to speak less than I can, which people might be happy about anyway. So we've seen somewhat more police in the neighborhood since that meeting. And if I can summarize what I've observed is, when the police are present, the neighborhood is a lot cleaner.
Andy, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Can you mute Key because you her it's reverberating?
Let me.
Let me log out and come back in.
Okay.
Testing. You know what? I'm going to call
Now
in.
you're good. Now you're good.
Oh, okay. I'm not really sure who that was. I didn't change.
It was Nikki.
Okay.
Yeah, she's good now.
All right. So, what I've observed is that when there are additional police, the neighborhood gets a lot cleaner. And pretty much as soon as the police aren't present, things, revert back to the way they were. And, this gets back to the ask that we had at the working group and at the forum where we need multiple police, we believe we need multiple 24/7 police posts to get that clean. We've seen that police can clean the neighborhood and that they're very effective when they're present, but there just aren't enough of them to keep the neighborhood clean and safe and make it, clean it up in the same way that the city cleaned up Atkinson Street and downtown. And at least that's my observation. I'm going to ask other people to see what else they've observed. But I'll give a couple of simple examples. We've just on Sunday, many of you know I'm an avid bike rider, and I drove my car along from my house onto Mass Ave and onto the connector at roughly 6:45 a.m. And much to my shock, I didn't see a single soul. I didn't see a dealer. I didn't see anyone. There weren't even police that had been looked present, except for one Longwood security in front of 727. And I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised. I did see a few people on the far corner near the DePietro's, construction while I was waiting at the light. And I thought, wow, things are much cleaner. I was really surprised. And I returned that afternoon, after the bike ride. It was roughly 1 p.m. And I saw, I'm going to guess, 50 to 75 people in front of the Hampton Inn on the Melnia Cass side. So they weren't on Mass Ave. They were all on Melnia Cass. There wasn't a soul on Mass Ave. So I'm assuming that the police had some sort of action to corral them there. It was unusual. I was sort of happy in the sense that I thought that was something that we had actually asked for. We had actually asked for them to be on the other side. That building is away from many residents, but there are some businesses there, and we're not looking to push our troubles onto someone else. We had asked them to move them in front of the jail because there's nothing there. There's no businesses, no residents, there's nothing. But I think that's controlled by the state police. In any case, I said, wow, things are somewhat clean. As I rode down Mass Ave, same thing. There was very few people there. I did see one person acting extremely erratically on the corner of Mass and Harrison, but there was only one person. And I was thinking, wow, things are improving. Later that day, though, I needed to call 911 3 times because of the people that were just congregating on my stoop, three separate times. There were, a fair number of people on my stoop. So, the point is, whatever the police were doing was effective when they were doing it, but, whatever happened stopped and things reverted back. And then Brian reports that at the same time, Harrison and Northampton was very active as it always is. And so, the point is, if we could have that presence all over the neighborhood, and keep it there, we believe that we could make the neighborhood safer, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So with that, and then also there were 2 break-ins. Since that meeting, there was a break-in on, and I invite the police to tell us more about this. I did speak to them about each break-in a little bit. There was a break-in on Mass 705 Mass Ave, the Japanese takeout restaurant. Someone broke in and took the cash register, and I think it was found on Worcester Square. And then there was another break-in on East Springfield Street where apparently someone was away for a while, and a homeless person or someone was trying to squat and break into their apartment and squat in it.
And Andy, I hate to cut you off, but I'm at 10 Worcester Square. I'm John's neighbor. My apartment was broken into and squatted in for overnight, and I was robbed of my valuables this past weekend as well.
Okay. So these are things we hadn't seen before. And, again, we there's a lot of things that we want to do going forward in terms of recovery and in terms of, court reform. But, for right now, we see that when the police are here, things are good. And when they're not, and they can't be everywhere with the number of people there are, it's getting more dangerous. And I don't know that break-in is dangerous, but it's the level of pain is going up. And that's at least that's what I've observed and what I've heard. But I invite people to raise their hand, and we can hear from people. And if the police want to comment on any of those break-ins, I didn't even know about the third one. This would be a good time to do it.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I'm not aware of the commercial break. I might have missed it. I try to read every report, but I can look into it. For the West Springfield incidents, did make an arrest on an individual on July 18th for the 44 West Springfield incident. That person was released on their own recognizance, and I think the detectives are now charging the same person for the 10 Worcester Square.
That's correct.
And so I think that person has multiple warrants now for her arrest.
Is there something we can do to show up at their arraignment to see if they can get denied bail? Because you break in and then you break in a few days later. I would strenuously object to having them given bail again.
I completely agree. That would be something that the victim would have to reach out to the victim advocate at BMC court. And the victim advocates there will be able to keep them appraised of what is going on in the court process. And the victim has every right to show up. And they're encouraged to show up because that just shows accountability for the court a little bit.
And the neighborhood sends somebody, because this is a persistent problem for all of us. Maybe we need to start giving some color to the court that this affects everybody and not just a single victim.
Can I just jump in real quick? John Brown, Deputy Superintendent for your zone down there. Just so you know, you guys got to be aware that, as I'm sure if you've been following the news at all, there are no defense attorneys. So the judges at BMC BMC court and some of the other courts are immediately dismissing cases without prejudice, which means they're coming right back out. So I wouldn't even waste your time trying to go down to the courthouse or try to get involved right now until this whole situation gets squared away with the defense attorneys.
I was aware of that. Thank you for, I'd forgotten about it, but yeah, thank you for well, I'm not happy about it, but thanks for pointing it out.
So
Right.
is there any timeline to when this will be solved? Like there will be a solution for this defense issue?
So the governor spoke tonight. I don't know if you guys, anyone caught her, but she said she's working hard to try to have this thing come to an agreement. And is it John Moran, who's the state rep over there? I know there's some legislation going on. I'm not aware of any timeline at all, though. And this has been going on for quite a while. So when we're doing these Section 35s on these people down at Mass and Cass and around Worcester Square and the arrests are being made, unfortunately, these people are going in, you know, the case is called, but that's it. And then they're released without prejudice. So we have to refile. Ultimately, we'll have to refile these cases all again at some point. When, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out, but you know, these guys are doing all this work down there every day, day in and day out. And these people are going right to court and they're coming right back out. So, you know, that's something that's above all of us that none of us are going to be able to deal with. It's kind of like a state level thing. It's a legislature issue.
Yeah, no, I am aware of that. Actually, this might be a good time to introduce our elected officials. Sorry, but I saw Riley, who's Nick Collins' legislative aide. And I don't know if there are any other elected officials or I don't see any, but there may be some, well, Reggie Stewart, I guess you're part of Fernandez Anderson's office, but I don't know if anyone wants to comment on what they know about this. And Wilmer, I guess you're from Santana's office. Welcome. I haven't seen you before in this meeting.
I can just say, hi, this is Riley from Senator Collins' office. Sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'll keep my camera off. But one update that we have, it's not completely related, but kind of, that legislation S1042, an act relative to life-saving treatment, kind of has to do a little bit with, you know, the court system, and I can send the link to that bill. I know a couple of people from this neighborhood came and testified in support. Andy did at the State House. Just giving an update that the bill has moved out of the Judiciary Committee and has been moved into the Healthcare Financing Committee, which is great news because that means that committee saw it and reported it out favorably and deemed that it was a bill that can keep moving through the legislative process. So that's a small amount of progress, but that means it's moving. It's good news, and I'll send over that legislation in the chat here. Thank you, guys.
What does the bill have to do with the lawyers, the lack of defense attorneys? I'm not clear.
It isn't, Helene. They're unrelated.
Okay. Well, you know.
Yeah, sorry, it doesn't address that topic directly, but just kind of an update on the state legislative front. And I'll definitely bring this topic to Senator Collins, and I'll see if there's anything that we can do on our side of things.
Yeah. Connor, also here from Rep Moran's office. We definitely have heard about this, and this is also something that we're looking into as well. So we don't have any updates as of right now, but we'll keep looking into it and try to talk to the relevant parties.
I mean, I'm assuming that there's a lot of pressure on the governor to get this done, but I don't know if there's adding more or the state can't function without the ability to lock people up, and without defense attorneys, there is no ability to do that because everyone's entitled to a lawyer.
And you can't section people either. So it's no arrests and no section. So is it basically all crime is legal until this is done, until this gets fixed?
Well, Brian, hi, everyone. This is Kelly Young, Director of the Coordinated Response Team. Remarkably, this has not stopped the Boston Police or my team from still moving forward with arrests and petitioning for sections. It's extremely frustrating that the good majority of the time, like the sergeant and deputy superintendent spoke about, just being, siphoned back out. But that we are still doing the work for what that's worth. So I don't want you to think that, because we don't have any lawyers, we're all, saying, okay, forget our strategy and we'll just wait for these lawyers to come back. So it's just a good majority of them aren't sticking because, there's no lawyer to represent the person, but not all. But it's definitely not working in our favor. That is true, Brian.
Well, it's ridiculous that those legislatures, find money for pickleball court and a robot to mow some lawn and things that they don't have money for these lawyers. That's ridiculous. They all got their earmarks, really, instead of paying more money to these lawyers. $65 an hour for a lawyer. That's nothing. That's nothing. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. I wouldn't vote for another one of them if my life depended on it. I guess you all read about it in the Globe, about all their earmarks that they managed to vote for themselves. Did you read the article in the Globe about that? Did anyone read the article?
I heard a lot about it. I don't remember any particular article, but I think what we should start to do is use the raise hands cue, and try to, my goal today was, I hadn't talked to as many people as I normally would in the month, and I just wanted to see if other people's observations were similar to mine, or maybe they're better or worse. So Desi has his hand up, and we'll start to use the raise hand cue.
Andy, thanks for calling on me. So I live on East Springfield Street. I've lived here for the last 7 years, and I live here with my wife and kids. I actually live 2 doors down from where the break-in occurred. And in my 7 years here, I'm typically used to crimes of opportunity, which I will define as somebody just opens, they turn a gate is unlocked, then they turn a doorknob and door happens to be unlocked. So I'm just not as used to seeing breaking and enterings down here. So I was wondering if the police, or possibly Kelly, I'm not sure who should answer this, but if you could give us some insight, like were doors unlocked, or was this truly a case of breaking in? And if it was breaking in, can you please give us some practical tips? Thank you.
And what time was the break-in? Was it at night or daytime?
Can the police, Helene, please, let's use the raise hand cue.
Yes. So I don't have the reports in front of me, and I didn't run a data. I can run a data set to see how many break-ins and run a crime trend over time to see if there's an uptick or not. In that, I'm at home, so I don't have access to the government network. So I can't do that now. I could do it tomorrow morning and send it off to you, Andy. But if a door is unlocked, if a home is unlocked and somebody opens the door and walks into the house, they broke and entered. That is the legal term would still be a breaking and entering. They used force by physically opening the door and entering it. But I want to, from my recollection, like I said, I read 100 reports a day. In these cases, I think it was some sort of tool was being used, maybe a brick. Now, don't hold me to it. I can get you the factual information, but I think something was being used to attempt to break through a window in one of the incidents.
Thank you. I do have some practical advice, which I'll share a little bit later, about package theft. I've tried something and it seems to be working well, but I'll do that a little bit later. I just want to hear from people. Do you have any advice, to prevent a break, a forcible break-in or
yeah, to fortify your house, double check your doors, double check your windows before you leave. If you have an air conditioner and you're planning on leaving for an extended period of time and it's reachable from the ground, to remove that, like a wall, like a window unit, If there's any ladders in your alleyways or anything somebody could stand on to reach a window, try to get that out of the way. You can get blink cameras, put them on the outside of your building in a conspicuous place where they can be seen. Leave lights on if you're going out at night. Make it appear that you're home. There's light timers that you can have that'll turn lights on in different rooms. You plug them into your wall and the light goes on in one room, it shuts off, it goes on in another room, makes it look like somebody's home. The people that want to commit these types of crimes don't want to do it when somebody's home. That's kind of the goal. If they can look in your window and see that nobody's home, then they might take that opportunity. And I can send you, we have a informational flyer about package thefts that I can also send to you that you can put out in a bulletin.
I guess I'll cut to the chase on the package thefts. I bought a code, like a lock that has, in addition to a key, you can type in a code to let yourself into the front door. And I've given that code to Amazon, to FedEx, and to UPS. And so now all of those 3 delivery services can let themselves into sort of I don't know if you call it a vestibule or a lobby, but they can let themselves into that locked door just the same way the post office can. And that has, luckily I haven't been broken into. No one's knocked down the door if they saw Amazon delivering it, but I've had a number of successful deliveries with Amazon, and I no longer send all my stuff to Whole Foods. This was partly motivated because Whole Foods has so many people sending stuff there that they don't always have room for it. So I thought of this, and it seems to be successful, at least for now. And I'll send people the link. It was only $80. I'm not particularly handy, but I was able to install it in less than an hour. And if I had to do another one, it would take less than a half hour, because it's actually pretty simple, especially once you know how to do it. So I'll put that link in the chat, and it's an 8-digit code, so no one's going to guess it. You can have as many of them as you want. You can delete them. You can make them one-time use if you want to. It's been a success. All right, Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's well, I typed in the chat earlier. It's a war zone again back where I am. People break into the backyard doing drugs back there. There's police don't even show up about a third of the time now. They had been inching down response times. We're back up to 2+ hours most of the time, and that's if they do respond at all. There's robberies of people just going by on their bike and robbed by people. There's the recorded assault that went viral on TikTok. The guy or girl or somebody got beat up while they were on their bike. People walking around with visible weapons, and the police don't show up for quite a bit of time, and then all they do is shoo them away. So like the same officer that we highlighted in one of our presentations who just shooed away one of the drug wholesalers came and didn't do anything about multiple people with weapons. Just told them all to leave. No one got searched, even though multiple bats, knives, pointed shank things out visible on the street, and police don't do anything. Drug use on my door frequently. Multiple assaults. There was a car full of bullets one morning, right 50 feet from my front door. I had 8 bullets in the car. I got attacked again, and you call 911, they just say they're busy and the next available unit's coming. So yeah, it's not okay.
Can you give any detail on some of the 911 calls, or
Yeah, like I've, given details of the people who have the weapons, what the weapon looks like, what they're wearing, and then the police take 45 minutes to show up for a weapon call, which is like unheard of. For a weapon call, it's usually like 5 minutes, and then they just shoo them away, and they didn't search anybody.
What kind of weapon?
Like a long pointy stabby thing. And the other guy was just waltzing around with a baseball bat for 24 hours. Like I'd called him in the day before, no one came for him. And because he was sleeping outside next door, and then he was still there the next day, just waltzing around with a baseball bat, just walking up and down the sidewalk, along with his friend with a stabby thing.
What day was this?
I got video of the guy. I can get you a timestamp. Give me a second. And as usual, the officers don't call and they don't want to see the footage of weapons and whatever. But let me get you the date.
You got to understand how much the call volume is in our district as well, with the amount of officers we have.
But I've been attacked, so it doesn't matter if we're getting assaulted. It doesn't matter what the volume is.
You're mentioning many different calls. They're all going to have different response times, different priority levels. There are assigned priority levels when someone calls 911. It's assigned a priority level. So if that call gets entered in as a priority 7 or a priority 6, the dispatchers have to give the priority 1 calls a higher priority. So, there's, like I said, the limit of amount of police officers we have. If everybody's on a priority 1 call, the priority 5 calls, which would be, somebody walking around with a baseball bat, I don't know the exact priority of that. What would it be? Would probably drop down on the priority level based on computer assisted dispatching.
But like this, a lot of this is all in like the same day. So like it's whatever the triaging is, it's not safe to walk around on Harrison.
And this gets back to what I said in the beginning of the meeting. There just aren't enough police in D4 to do the job that's necessary. The police, when they're there, things are better. But, this is exactly what we have observed, that based on the level of activity, there just aren't enough police right now. And, this is why we asked for 24/7 fixed posts the way we did on Atkinson Street.
Yeah, about 9 in the morning, I called in 911, the guy with the bat and his friend with the shank.
And was this Sunday, Brian?
The photo of the bat is 9:13 a.m. on Sunday. And he was out all night, so I had, put him in for 301 for sleeping. He didn't have the bat then. He acquired the bat at some point through the night, and he was just roaming around with that.
Yeah, I can't imagine an officer seeing that and letting it walk away.
I have video of them letting him walk away.
Of a police officer letting him walk away with a baseball bat?
Yep. The same guy that let the kingpin walk away a few weeks back, the one that was collecting all the money from everybody. And flower pot guy was with him.
Yeah, Brian, let's, if you get something that you want to share, we can, but let's let other people talk. And we do need to follow up on this, though, especially video of someone walking away. There may be a good reason, but it does that's pretty serious. Helene, you're next.
Sounds like it's the police officer at one time or 2 times that does nothing. And Brian brought this up before, so I don't know what's the good of pointing out that police officers to the police department, they don't do anything. And they, in terms of the break-ins, were they at night? And on one thing that the mafia did years ago, they left the radio on at their headquarters. Even when they weren't there, the radio was on all night. So when the FBI first wanted to go in, they couldn't. They heard voices and they thought there was somebody there. So maybe you should leave radios or TVs on if you're not going to be home.
I don't have the exact times of those break-ins. Like I said, I don't have the reports with me. I don't know exactly what time. And as far as what happened with that incident with the officers, I'm going to look into it and speak to the officer, and I'll let the rest of the patrol force know that they shouldn't let people walk around with items like that.
Well, Brian had mentioned it before. At the last minute, he mentioned some officer that was.
This happened 3 days ago.
Yeah, but
there were other incidents.
Yeah, the same. I'm pulling up the video right now. It's the same guy that let the kingpin go a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'll deal with the officer.
And does anybody know what time the break-ins occurred? There are lots of people on this Zoom meeting. Do any of them know what time the break-ins occurred? Were they at night?
I'm one of the people whose house was broken into. We don't know exactly at this point, but we think it was middle of the night. Yeah.
So the house was all dark. Is that what it was?
I assume so, but I don't know enough specifics. Yeah.
Were you home at the time or were you traveling?
We were traveling.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law showed up to our house the next day at like 9 p.m. and obviously surprised the person that was there. And he saw her like run by him in the house and followed her out, but she was able to get away.
She was still there when he got there?
Yeah, I assume she thought we were coming home on Sunday.
So she was like living there for the time being. This wasn't just a burglary in and out.
No, she was. I assumed she was there for shelter, mainly, and then as someone else, I forget who said, opportunistically took the jewelry and all my shampoo, all my makeup, towels, etc., my husband's clothing. But no, she was very brazen. She took a bath. She took a shower in a different bathroom. She slept in our bed. She was watching Bravo TV for hours on end. She ate snacks all over our house, left food everywhere. Went through my children's like band-aids, went through my children's rooms. So this is not just it's not just a simple breaking and entering.
How do you think? You know how she knew you weren't there?
I mean, we're not really sure. I honestly have concerns that they were watching us, pack our car and realized and came back later that night. So I don't know that it's just people walking around looking for locks being opened, which is part of the reason I agree there needs to be. And I understand how overwhelmed the cops are, and I truly appreciate them in the area. So none of this is a knock on the cops, but I think they're getting smarter and smarter, and not just, I have always just assumed that they were too, high to really do anything else, but I don't think that that's true, and I think there's some more organization around it.
Okay, Helene, do you have anything else? Thank you, Emily.
Wondering where do you live, Emily?
I'm on Worcester Square.
What's the square? What floor was it on? I wonder. You don't have to give us.
The ground floor, yeah.
And 44 East Springfield. Was it at night? What floor was it on? Does anybody know? Anybody want to say?
44, the East Springfield was the garden unit. And the description that was just made by the resident on Worcester Square sounds exactly what the occupant of East Springfield recounted about the person who broke into her place. She made herself at home. She slept in her bed. She took a shower. She was living there. She took like her shoes, like very strange stuff. But I believe
Those are
that
took my shoes, so.
Yeah, the police said they were sure it was the same person.
and they
That's
apprehended her, I believe.
right, but they let her off
She was
because
released
there's no
because of
lawyers.
this
That's why we
DAHU.
That's why we talked about no lawyers for the first few minutes of the meeting. All right, Steve, you've been patient.
No, no worries. Thank you, Andy. First to Emily and to Melissa, really, on behalf of the entire South End community, really, we're just horrified at what you had to go through and that the experience that you've had. Really, really sorry that it happened to you. The words, escape. I'm just so you know that that the entire community is with you and wants to help in whatever way we can, together with our partners from the city. I know everybody wants to find solutions, but want to acknowledge what you've gone through and really appreciate your willingness to come forward and tell your story. A lot of people would choose not to, and justifiably, but so thank you for sharing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Sergeant Narduzzo and Deputy Brown, I wanted to kind of address one of the things that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and Brian touched on it. And it's not really the idea of single 911 responses. I think that we've had enough conversations about this for everybody to recognize that we have a significant crisis in this particular neighborhood, and that we need to have a different strategy as we look at how we approach this. So we get the fact that you guys have limited resources, that you're trying your level best. We are incredibly supportive of the police efforts to try to control and manage a difficult situation. But we still have to kind of like push these incidents, kind of in your face, because we're really struggling to find real solutions that will get us through this crisis period and into a place where we're on a steady state, improving things in terms of our community. And to sort of illustrate that, one of the things that I saw yesterday on our Facebook page, which has about 14, 15,000 members, was a person I've never heard of posted some photographs. And based on the photographs, I think it's Washington Street. And they said, there's a group of people actively shooting up and then running around high. I called the police to report 30 minutes ago and still no response. Has this happened to anybody else? So this is clearly somebody else in the South End who hasn't previously had this experience, who's now seeing it for the first time outside her door. And she posted the videos. And then she goes on to say, I called 911 twice. No one came to respond. Similarly, last Thursday, I saw a man on drugs going through all the garbage, tearing it up and throwing it all over the ground. I called 911 and no one came as well. I waited over an hour, wondering what's going on with the police. Why are they not responding to these calls? And then there are a bunch of other people who responded and basically offered their suggestions in terms of what to do. But this is just an illustration of what people are hearing and what they are experiencing all over the South End. And that doesn't come as any surprise to you. But what I think people are asking for is a new way of approaching all of these incidents taken together, meaning that we don't have the right strategy and resources yet to address the public safety dimensions of the South End. And I think that's why I think we need to sit down and talk about not not these individual incidents, but the fact that we need to have a better way of addressing all of these crises that are happening on a daily basis rather than dealing with them as whack-a-mole issues. I've been dealing with mass and cast for 10 years, and I know that most of the time we deal with it as a whack-a-mole situation, meaning we deal with individual incidents and we figure out how to deal with that, and then we try to get to a period beyond the crisis period of June, July, and August, and then hope that the colder weather will take the issue away, and then we revisit it again in the spring, and then we get it high season in the summer. What I guess I'm saying is that I'm hearing after 10 years that this is really a crisis more than ever before in the South End, largely because we have moved everybody from Newmarket. Plus, Newmarket has its own security force 24/7, and we've moved everybody from Newmarket into the South End. So we need a new strategy for how we're going to address the public safety needs of the South End. And that involves fixed posts. We've been talking about the need for a temporary van substation placed that, in the South End that can move from location to location so that there's a 24/7 presence and that people see it and know that the police are serious about being there, that it's not just respond to 911 as business as usual, that we've got a different approach to this. And I think that's what people are kind of asking for. What can we do together to figure out how we can address this crisis with resources in a way that we haven't done in the past?
Thank you, Steve. All right. Does John Brown I don't see him anymore, but I don't know if he
No,
wants.
I'm here. I'm here,
Okay,
Andy.
do you want to respond? I mean,
Yeah, sure,
this is what-
definitely. Yeah, let me just say a couple of things real quick. So I hear what everyone's saying, and as you guys know, the mission of the Boston Police Department is community policing, right? It's our job to partner with the community to fight crime, reduce fear, and improve the quality of life in the neighborhoods. And I think we do since I've been on this job for 30 years, I think we do a pretty good job. I know there's issues in the South End. I mean, since we've had that meeting with the commissioner, and as you said early, Andy, when we first started this meeting, you are seeing incremental things getting better in the South End. This is an issue that's been going on for 10 years. It's not going to change overnight. But since that meeting, what we have done, I'm not going to run through a bunch of numbers because they really don't matter, but we've made well over 300 arrests in that area since the meeting with the mayor, pretty much. We've done a number of 35s where we've trying to get people some services. Kelly Young and her team and the community outreach units are going crazy. We meet every morning at 9 o'clock and have a conversation about different things going on as far as drug use throughout the entire city and responses of how we're going to deal with these things. Now, I'm on the radio. I listen to the radio. I've been in the South. I have 4 different districts, but I've been in the South End now for the last at least a month or so. I listen to the radio every day, and I don't know what's going on, but I hear officers down there. I hear the van down there. I hear Code 19s down there at Worcester Square every single day. I've sent the bike unit. The citywide bike unit has been down there. I have a number of drug units that have been making trafficking arrests in Northampton and Harrison and all these different places I've been listening to all night. I don't know what types of responses that are going on, but I've got to tell you guys, the work has been getting done by the police. Now, with that being said, we also have to remember when we make an arrest now, they're not being held. They literally go to the court. They get booked at Nashua Street, right? Then they go to the courthouse, and the judge, if you watch the 10 o'clock news tonight, you'll see it live. The judges say cases are dismissed without prejudice. There's not even an attorney there. So this is what we're up against. This is what we're doing. But like Kelly said earlier, we are working hard in that neighborhood every single day. I hear it from the guys at District 4 every single day. I can tell you right now, we're working to do the best we can. I do not believe that we'll ever be in a position to put a 24/7 unit in one location in District 4. That is a gigantic district. I don't know if it's bigger or just as big as A1 downtown. So I don't think we'll ever have a true 24/7 unit down there. But I hear the guys on that radio every single day going off in your neighborhood, in your community, and they're doing damn fine work down there. And I know you all appreciate that. I know you do, because I hear you say it constantly. But the work as far as the police department is getting done, and we will continue to work with the community in any responses that we can as best we can and provide the best services we can. Like I said, we've had the citywide bike unit down there. I have a number of different drug units down there that are working continuously throughout the day down there. They've been making huge arrests, bringing in big numbers. And I'm not really sure what more we can do. I know people like to see the visibility, and I try to get the most visibility I can for you guys for our buck out of the citywide bike unit, and they've been down there. I have some guys at District 4 who are trained up on the bikes who are going to be hopefully getting out there soon, and as soon as we can get them some uniforms and different things like that. But we are working every day continuously with coordinated outreach. Sorry, my radio. Coordinated outreach and other partners throughout the city, and we're going to continue to keep doing the best we can. It's definitely not going to be an overnight thing, Steve. As you know, you've been dealing with this for 10 years, but we together as a community and with the resources that we do have, we can make this better. I believe that we've identified, maybe out of all the people that have been down there over the last 10 years, I think we're only looking at maybe 80 people who get together for congregant drug use pretty much every day. And so, like you said earlier, Andy, you went out in the morning, they're gone, and I see the same thing. It's clear. Then all of a sudden they're there. We do have a little bit of a push. Sometimes they're over Nubian Square. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of different issues going on with these 80 people that we're trying to deal with and get them services. Unfortunately, most of the services for these people are right in your backyard. You know what I mean? With the hospitals and everything else that is over there, the Public Health Commission and everything. So I think those are the kind of things we're up against. You're dealing with it mostly because it's right there in your backyard where they have to go for their services. But with that being said, we're not going to stop doing what we got to do. We're dedicated to doing what we have to do. Don't think for a second we don't care. These guys at District 4 are working their asses off for the South End and Mass and Cass and Ramsey Park to keep those kids play basketball programs going. You have two youth basketball leagues going on in Ramsey Park. That place was being overtaken for a minute. It's done now, though. We've got them out of there. And they're having issues over there on Melnea Cass at the Residence Inn and the Enterprise business. So like I said, we know what the issues are. We're working the best we can with all of our city partners, Parks Department, everyone's, the streets, to try to keep them clean. And we just got to keep going. We got to have faith, and we got to work together. As a community, we have a great thing in this city. We have a great relationship with the communities throughout the city, and we just have to kind of maintain that.
All right, thank you. I want to clarify two things that I said. I said that I saw more police activity, but I did not say things were better. In fact, I then gave some examples of how they're worse. And, that's the point. I get the courts I accept, and that's something we really should be, all of us should call Maura Healy's personal house number tonight and get her to sign that damn contract. But the bottom line is we have seen more police activity, but there's a lot more drug activity too, and it's not enough. And that was the way I phrased it. That I know people are working hard. The officer that Brian mentioned, maybe, I'm no comment on him. I know many police are working hard, but there just aren't enough. Like you said, if there are so many calls that you can't respond to someone brandishing a weapon and threatening people with a shiv and a bat, we need more police. It's just as simple as that. That is not an acceptable answer. We may need to talk to Mayor Wu again. It's not acceptable. You're basically telling us that, there's nothing we can do about someone brandishing a weapon because we call 911 if there aren't enough police. we need to deal with it on our own somehow. And I'm
No,
not sure.
Andy, I definitely don't think that is a priority one call. And I don't know, I mean, we'd have to really sit down and look at the particulars around that call.
But it like it's a recurring, it recurs.
No, I know, Brian,
there.
listen, I don't want to get into the weeds on that right now because none of us have the data or none of that have the information right this moment. It's something we could definitely talk about with the captain and kind of go through and see but that is a priority one call. And when I'm on this radio today, I find it very, very hard to believe that a priority one call like that of that nature came in and no one responded.
I have multiple
I don't know.
videos.
But let's
of
not get into that.
this
This isn't really the forum
But
for
John,
that right now
if we just
because we don't
focus
have
on
the
one
numbers.
incident, we aren't fixing the problem. And like you lost a lot of community trust here when you try to tell us it's incrementally better. It's incrementally worse. So like, we were willing to give you the benefit of the doubt here, but like you can't say things to us that we know are untrue. It is worse week by week by week here. And I have repeatedly captured on video officers not searching people with weapons. So whatever it is, it's not okay and it's not working. And we are desperate to survive out here, and we need a better solution than words that are like, hey, we're going to look into it. We are going to figure out what happened and what went wrong this one time. No, it is going wrong all the time. We are unsafe. We are under attack. I am still in pain from the last person I had to fight with several days ago. It is not okay. I was fighting for my life. Like, you cannot say we're making progress when we are afraid for our lives.
I don't know about your incident, but with that, again, that's outside of your individual incidents. I'm out there. I'm out there daily. I see what's going on. I see what's happening. I see what the cops are doing. As far as we're concerned, and I see what the coordinated response team does with Kelly Young every day, and I see things getting better. That's the way I see them, especially since we've had our meeting with you may not, but I've seen it on an overall picture. Aside from the South End, Mass Ave, over Lower Roxbury, the area is definitely getting better. Street outreach of getting people housed and getting different services for them.
It's not getting better. It's not getting better.
You have to understand that these people are at the bottom rung of life. You know what I mean? So it's important for us to deal with them and try to get them the services they need on a daily basis.
John, just stop snowing us here. Like, I was attacked. Like, it's not
I'm
okay.
not aware of, I don't know anything about your attack, Brian. I don't even know if it's true. I don't know about it. I don't know about an attack.
It's on video.
I'm just telling you about, okay, well, we have a whole lot of people on this call who want to have a discussion. So I think maybe we should take individual things and hold off on those for now.
How come you don't know about his attack?
What?
How come I don't know about his attack?
Yes.
Oh, because I run 4 districts from East Boston to Brighton.
Oh, God.
So I don't know about one particular attack. No, I don't know about it.
So then stop telling us it's getting better if you don't know of the attacks that are happening to people on this call. Multiple people on this call.
I know. I see the
there.
calls that come in. I talk to the detectives that come in. I know what's going on over there in District 4. And we're talking about, well, we continue to stay on Brian's issue for some reason, but I think we have a bigger thing we have to deal with in that whole area. And I think it's getting done. I think, and again, getting back to the fact that we need to work together to move things forward and to keep things going.
Deputy, this is Steve again. Really appreciate your addressing this. I don't think we want to. I think we want to lower the temperature a little bit. I think that what we really want is to be heard, and for everyone on this call to understand what we're trying to say in terms of the environment that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. John, I know that you're out there and you're trying hard to work with your officers. I know that Sergeant Narduzzo is doing the same, and everybody in D4. We get all that. I think what we're saying is that we're faced with a crisis right now that we don't feel is getting better. You may think that things are getting better from your perspective, but from a resident point of view, it's not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. And I'm seeing more reports from people outside of the Mass and Cass immediate environment, outside of WSANA, that are saying, what the hell is going on? That was the point of trying to explain to you that we're seeing more migration further into the South End. And I guess what I'm saying is we need to be able to sit down and figure out strategically what it is that's best in terms of the public safety dimensions of the South End. We can't continue doing just what we're doing right now and expect to get the results that we need, because people are scared, and I think you appreciate that, and so I'm looking forward to having a dialogue so that we can talk about a better strategic direction.
All right, let's move on to Melissa and then George and then Senator Collins.
Thank you so much. I just want to say I personally very much appreciate the Boston Police Department. I think you guys are doing your best. I'll just say that. This is a terrible situation for everybody involved. My question really revolves more around bicycle patrols. It's beautiful. I ride my bike to work every day. Tonight, when I was coming home from work, I saw the city bike patrol. It's like a parade. It's like 10 men in uniforms on a bike. It's a joke. You see them coming. They're not doing much. It's not deterring crime. Having the police presence in the community all day long is better. It's much better. In years past, there's been bicycle patrols with 2 men on bicycles all day long, up and down the alleys. They see things that the men in the cruisers don't.
Yes.
Or men and women. I don't mean to be gender specific here. And that's just a fact. You hear and you see different things when you're on a bicycle. I do not understand why we cannot have more regular bicycle patrols in the community, because I do believe they are an extreme deterrent. I have seen people scatter like ants when they see the police arrive. I have seen this over and over again. And yet now we say, well, we have the city bicycle patrol. That respectfully is a joke, because it is like a parade of people riding on bicycles once or twice a day at most, and everybody sees them coming and they are not deterring anything. So I just was wondering why we can't have more regular, like, presence of the police on bicycles or foot, frankly. I mean, you know, in the area.
Can I just step in? Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Young, and then the police can answer your question, Melissa, because I can't speak for Boston Police. But what I do want to say that's important for, I think, everyone to take away is the police are, as you know, out there. The numbers speak for themselves. They're doing the 35s. They're doing the arrests. It's we've identified one of the largest hurdles is the courts right now. We could do 100 Section 35s a day, and to no avail, right? So, and same thing with the arrests. They keep coming out, and we've all established that there is a concentration of addiction providers in the South End. It's a very unique landscape in that way, which makes things coupled with we're down resistant population. And I think part of the reason why we're seeing such heightened escalated behavior is because of the types of drugs that are.
That may be, but the police presence deters.
I agree.
What we're seeing. Just
more.
Their presence, whether they're arresting anyone or not, their presence deters the activity.
I have been an advocate for law enforcement since day one, and enforcement is the best deterrent. But with all of the the things that we've talked about, even when we have police presence, that's not going to fix, if you will, or permanently fix the issues. It may temporarily do it, but there's a lot of things that need to go on at the same time, and a lot of people need to partner at the same time in order to really make a lasting change in the South End. So I think we've identified some of them here. I know that Senator Collins filed a very important, bill piece of.
Still doesn't have support of the city, though. Kelly.
Yeah.
Still does not have support of the city.
I'm sorry. I can't speak for, but
you do speak for the mayor.
No, I'm speaking for myself right now. which is I think is acceptable. So I just want to say, we also need to look at having specialty courts that can deal with these things, universal booking systems. There are many different, gaps in the system. So I am with all of you the enforcement is the best deterrent, but there are other things that happen, that need to also be supported after the enforcement in order to keep people actually away from the south end.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm working with Kelly on many of those things. I testified, for Senator Collins' bill. We do need all of those things, but right now, because we don't have those things, enforcement is all we have, and we don't have enough of it.
Yeah, Andy, let me say about the
Bottom line.
misnomer. I know there may be some attorneys on the call, probably not many, but anyone shopping around that Section 35 is not going to be executed because of bar advocates. 80% of their work is criminal, indigenous clients, and there's only 2 counties where they walked away from the work, and that's Suffolk and Middlesex. So who's ever on this call shopping that around is either doing that to foment fear or that's not an option, and it's ridiculous. And they clearly don't know the facts, so they shouldn't be doing that. So the facts are 80% of their clients are criminal indigent. So as it relates to what judges are doing, I'm sure if they heard from City Hall that they want to see the judges really, take serious these issues, they will, but they don't. And, I think that's important. That's an important thing that we have not heard. We're talking about, let's talk about processing, legislation in the future on judicial reform. We have the ability to call for a state of emergency right now. And I guess I'd ask Kelly and anybody else who has an opinion on this, do you think it's a state of emergency in the South End? Most people I talk to think so. And the police are doing everything they can. I've known Sergeant Narduzo probably my whole life, and he does a fantastic job. I don't know the deputy, but the police do not have, save for bringing in the National Guard, we're never going to have the amount of public safety personnel to respond to everything that we see coming at a moment's notice. Here's our problem in the South End. Everybody gets discharged to the South End. It's not, what the heck are they doing here? It's all these services. No, they come through the doors, 10,000 in the last 4 years. No policy change. 10,000. We didn't make a change at all in how we're bringing people in. If so many people were getting treatment, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We abandoned treatment, and you can look at the statistics. I'm going to just, rather than, take my word for it, we're going to put up a couple things. Section 35 petitions have gone down 45% since 2017. And the only people up till recently, and it was 95%, maybe it's still 90% that were making petitions, were family. And what we've also seen, and you can see those in the statistics, is the amount of people that are now in and around the South End who have a rap sheet, not just saying criminal, but have overdosed multiple times and have been in the midst, have been saved by the Boston police, saved by the Boston firefighters, saved by EMTs. These are repeat cases. And I've been doing this 10 years plus as well with Steve in different sides of Melanie Cass. But we need a fundamental policy change. Why don't we support warrant sweeps? We have thousands of people with existing warrants out that are roaming the streets of the South End. And we know that in other parts of Boston. Prioritizing those we could do with the support of the executive leadership. We don't have that yet. Also a state of emergency. The legislation that we're talking about, BMC is owned by the city. They're the landlord. And if the state of emergency was issued by the executive director of the commission, they could change policy at the emergency room immediately because of a crisis. We know that they have the tools to do that. They declared states of emergency in other places. The key points on the justices right now, as it relates to how they're impacting the civil interventions, are they're granting them. They're just letting them out when they have a 90-day commitment at 2 weeks. The superintendents are allowing them out. We're trying to give the tools back to the judges that allow them to make the call on whether someone should be let out early. And these studies that they get shopped around, that have now been buried in the ether, that have unwound people's brains on on the response to this is the Harvard study saying if you are, petitioned with a civil commitment, you're more likely to overdose. They're missing the point. That's not the case. If you go to treatment for 90 days and you're let out in 2 weeks, you're more likely to overdose. And that is what the statistics bear out. So I'm going to put up the link on Section 35s. I'm going to put up the Department of Public Health link. Steady, 2,500 people overdose a year. It goes up to 2,700 the last 4 years. And 80% of them are getting discharged to the South End because they're going to BMC. We don't change that. All this stuff that we're talking about, police on every corner, 24/7. I would love to do that. I would call them for it too, but it's just, I don't know if it's possible. And even still, we're getting people who are upright carrying weapons on meth. Who's going to intervene successfully in that without having to take matters in an escalated fashion, which we see in one case, Brian's victimized, or in another case, or an extreme case, we can have somebody having to take lethal force to eliminate a threat. Meanwhile, we have 2,500 people a year going to the emergency room who end up in a gurney, and we let them out the front door with hospital slippers on, and they're doing the same thing over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. But to suggest that we shouldn't pursue Section 35 petitions because of bar advocates decided to take a walk. CPCS, which is who this legislation is tailored around and who we talk to, they're salaried lawyers. They're not on strike. They're still working, and they handle almost all these cases in the district courts, including BMC Central. So anyone shopping that around is, shopping around myths, truths. What their motivation is, I don't know. And the fact that the coordinated response team, and since Kelly's been on, everyone's saying is having more of an impact. That is important, but that's like harm reduction. It's a piece of the puzzle. If we don't fundamentally change how we're approaching this, and from what standpoint, we saw it in when things were so out of control with the tents. We had social workers trying to intervene, and they did their best, connecting people to family. But has anybody ever seen what it's like trying to negotiate with someone who's on methamphetamines upright while someone down this block is running around with a machete? It's borderline impossible, and it's very dangerous. So we have people that the government has already responded to because they are horizontal on the street, bring them back to the hospital to recover and save them. 2,500, and they're being discharged without treatment. That's our problem. And they're not just being discharged anywhere. They're being discharged to the South End, right outside of BMC. And so until that changes, we can have 100% precision with the coordinated response team, with harm reduction services. And we're still going to be in the same situation. We're losing battle of attrition with the afflicted because while Narcan and harm reduction and responses can improve, we're at 900 on responses. We're saving 90% of people who overdose. That's incredible. But we're still losing 10%. And the ones that are repeat offenders, until they, either get into treatment, whether a loved one can make it. And the other challenge is the older, the people who we're seeing on the street. I go by Massacas and Albany every day on the way into work and the way home. I'm seeing older and older people that are in the midst of this. And, no one from the families is coming in that case for the most part. So if we don't go from 90 to 95% family doing the interventions, it can't be police when people are upright. It's impossible to say we're going to deliver that without somebody getting hurt. We have 2,500 people a year, like the tide coming and going, coming into the front door or the emergency room at BMC, and we discharge them without treatment. That to me is insane. So whatever that takes, state of emergency, this legislation that's now before healthcare financing, I know it feels hopeless because you've been enduring this for so long. It feels like there's no end in sight. The police are doing everything they can. They've done more things in the last 4 years that are outside the realm of typical policing. So I tip my hat to them. We did put some funds in the budget through the Department of Health Jail Diversion Program to help support their training for the mental health and substance abuse responses, along with funding that can go to social workers and other support staff to respond to this stuff. If we don't change the discharge policy, which we're allowing the DMH to change when it comes to mental health patients and those that are under their care, or supported programs. But when it comes to overdoses, and these are the folks that are coming back every day, like that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with repeat offenders who are running around, running in people's houses on all sorts of things. They don't even know what they're on. But I'd like to see a warrant sweep and ask the police to consider, along with their partners at the state and federal level, plainclothes officers to start doing major drug arrests and to pull people off the street that are the merchants of misery down there. And we know there are plenty of them. There are people who are benefiting from an underground economy that at its core is human trafficking. And there have been some great efforts over the last number of years, big stings, but I think even more at a local level, send a message now from the Southwest corridor to Mass and Cass that, where this is picked up and the kind of drugs, Kelly's right, are you see the behavior that becomes violent and unpredictable. I've been in every corner of the city, 42 years. Very public housing development, any place that people may feel, I've never felt unsettled in my life more than I do feel in and around areas of the South End and Mass and Cass, because you have no idea what's going on behind the eyes. You have no idea what people do. I was out to dinner a couple of weeks ago. I was sharing this with Rep. Moran, my wife, at Toro. It was insane. I had my left and right up the whole time. People coming down, cross streets, up and down, in and out of tables. It was insane. I had my head on the swivel the whole time. And I can't imagine anybody who doesn't live there, who went there that night, is definitely not coming back unless they're just, die in the wool, Toro, come hell or high water. But that's what's going on every day in the South End. The police respond. They can't anticipate. We know what happens most of the time. And they're doing everything they can, and I appreciate that. I very much do. And the incident that Brian went through, we have to get to the bottom of that. And obviously, when it hits the threshold of a prior one call, you have to make the arrest. But we have to support people, and we do on this call. We need to hear more from people like me and my colleagues that they support the police to do that. Because for a number of years, it hasn't been the case. And the ACLU coming out saying, we're going to sue you, we're going to take your badge, we're going to take your livelihoods. How is that going to help the police respond to emergencies and crises? It doesn't. So I ask the folks on the call to make sure they're sharing that position with their elected officials, that they support the police to respond and to use their judgment to intervene and get the support from the top. Because if you do, they're going to feel more comfortable to do that. And I think that's critical. Because while the community clearly does, if the people who are the appointing authorities aren't backing them up, it's going to be challenging, because that's a culture shift that has changed over the last 4 years. It has been a more hands-off, approach on a lot of things. We see it that way, and it can't happen here. Just totally unsafe. It can be deadly. I just wanted to share that first and foremost, 80% of the folks of the bar council, the bar advocates, criminal indigents. CPCS is who we've been focusing with on the Section 35 petitions. So saying, Section 35 petitions aren't going to work because the state's, it's ridiculous. And again, 2 counties, and what they're asking for is insane. I would like to find a solution, and that's getting worked out, but that's not going to affect our ability to respond to this. And so, I want to dismiss that notion that, it's a waste of time, because civil commitment is different than a trial on criminal charges that gets dealt with right away. Our challenge is if people have a 90-day commitment, not letting them out after a spin drive for 2 weeks, so they come out and do things that they wouldn't even dream of before. And that's why this legislation is important. So I wouldn't, poo-poo it at all. And I ask everyone on the call, I'm going to put this up in a link too, to testify again to the Committee on Healthcare Financing. Because when we pass this, it will change your quality of life.
Nick, be sure to let us know when that's coming up so that we can either prepare to go to the State House or to just prepare written testimony or on Zoom.
Yeah, I think feel free to start firing away written testimony. When the hearing comes, you can let the rockets red glare, but I think the sooner the better, because we want to move this thing.
Can you let us know who's on the committee so maybe we can tailor it?
So I'm gonna share the link on the Section 35 database on all the statistics, and I'm going to also share you the DPH link on the statistics for how many overdoses that have happened over the last number of years. You can look back, a number of years, as well as the 1042, S1042, and where that is. It's from the Healthcare Finance Committee. You click that link, you see everybody that's on there. But I keep an open mind on warrant sweeps and having a coordinated effort, not just with visibility, which is also important. We're talking to the state police and T police to help support BPD too, because they can't do all this alone. Because you find these jurisdictional land, no man's lands if they don't help the cause, and that you can consider a state of emergency too. I mean, all options on the table means all options on the table, not it's getting better, so let's just keep doing the same thing. We can't. Unfortunately we can't. So I wouldn't rest on laurels. I'll share these links in the chat.
Perfect. And I'll connect with you tomorrow, but I do want to hear from some other residents. So Trevor.
Sure, I'll try to keep this brief. Just want to add my perspective that things are not getting better. So it's frustrating and unfortunate to hear perspective on this call that things are getting better, because that's not the experience of my husband and me, or frankly anyone else that we know in the neighborhood. Just a picture of a recent evening in the South End. I had a friend from Los Angeles visiting. We walked with her to dinner. We couldn't walk on our side of the street because we had just 311 to Needle and it hadn't been picked up yet. So we walked to the other side of East Springfield Street. 2 people are sitting on a stoop injecting themselves. So we walk in the middle of the street. We then get to Washington. Then there's a crowd of people in the bus stop at 1701 Washington. We cross the other side of East Springfield. There's more people shooting up. I mean, it's frankly ridiculous. And that's just one evening that captures the experience that I think many of us have in the neighborhood every day. And it's not acceptable, and it's not getting better. I'll say in terms of BPD and an individual basis, I've had very positive experiences with the officers who've responded to the many 911 calls. So I'm happy to share that positive perspective. I'm not unhappy with BPD, but I think we just need more of everything, and what we're doing isn't working.
Thank you. Helene, your hand was up, but you lowered it. Or do you still want to speak?
I wanted to ask Senator Collins what the legislature is doing about paying these lawyers more money. What are they doing? They pay themselves enough and they get all their earmarks. I want to ask him what.
Yeah, so they were offered a fair increase, and it wasn't enough. These are private attorneys who want to compare their cases to private business. CPCS has not quit. You understand? The Committee of Public Counsel Services are maintaining their cases. And again, Helene, the only 2 counties where bar advocates walked so far were Suffolk and Middlesex. Why? Because they think they can, go on strike like a union and say. So there's actually a discussion about whether we just say, to heck with them. Let's just expand CPCS, reliable attorneys, there every day, salaried, not trying to negotiate their hourlies. I mean, it's ridiculous what they're doing.
Well, they weren't making much money. $65 an hour is nothing.
Yeah, and they were. Well, first of all, they're taking cases after CPCS, but that's not where you go to make money. That is ancillary for almost all of them. And we did offer a bump. It wasn't enough. So not just take a bump and continue working and continue talking, and maybe if you can make a case across the state across the country that you're paid. I mean, there's no argument that anybody is, other than where this was their strategy, because they're not dumb. They said, "Oh, we'll just not work, force the courts to put out emergency procedures, let everybody out of jail that is going to scare people on the front end who haven't been along the path with a court case, and we'll just strike fear and panic in the public and get people to, pay our ransom." I mean, what is that? So The courts have responded the way they have, and we're in this, predicament. So what do we do now? We're offering them, a fair and adequate wage. And what are they going to do? They're going to hold out for more and more and more and more.
What can we do?
What can you do is I would call on them to get back to work. I mean, think about this. The police, if they don't get a fair contract, they can't strike at all. So what I'm thinking of doing, and I'm talking to colleagues about this, is making them the same situation. They can't strike because right now there's no laws governing it, because they need to be able to function. Think about what they just did. They just pulled a thread on the fair and equitable administration of justice. As an attorney, I take an oath to swear to, they just, in my opinion, they violated their oaths. They walked away from their commitments on the administration of justice and providing that counsel for Indigenous clients. And they said, we'll turn the system upside down. But if you're an EMS worker who is tired of the conditions, if you're the Boston Police who is tired of the conditions they're working under, if you're the Boston Fire Department, tired of the conditions you're working under, because it's insane. And by the way, objectively speaking, on this call, you would think that it's insane, the conditions that you're living in and the conditions that our first responders have to respond in, because it's just a Wild West. But as attorneys in a court, to pull that, they're not going to live it down. We're going to get through this, and the courts will be supported, and there will be representation on the other side. The bar advocates, in my opinion, just put themselves out of business.
Thank you. Brian, you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I'll be relatively quick. I just want to echo a lot of what's already been said on the call. I think there's talk of things potentially getting better. Just echoing, that's not exactly what I'm seeing. I think the increased police presence is good. I think we need presence and engagement, though. I don't know that presence solves everything. And what I mean by that, as an example, today I was out walking the dog, and this was the corner of Mass Ave and Milnea Cass. He loves going down there for some reason. But there was a BPD vehicle sitting right there, and right on the other side of that sign that's right on the corner, there were two people actively injecting. So it seems like the presence alone isn't deterring that activity. I went over and spoke to the officers, and again, they were great. And I think after I left, they went and engaged, but I think we need presence and engagement, because I don't think anymore, and potentially it's getting worse, that just the sight of a BPD vehicle or the presence is really deterring anything, at least based on what I'm seeing. And I don't know how to change that. Seems like people really aren't afraid of any sort of consequences, or that anything's going to happen to them, which I don't know how you solve anything if that's the case.
Thank you, Brian. Desi, I think you're next.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for calling on me. So what I wanted to ask is that after the events on East Springfield Street in Worcester Square, are there any plans to either alter patrols or increase patrols in the area?
We can assign somebody down there, but we still only have a limited amount of officers. They're still in the complete area. There hasn't been any specific directive to put somebody on what we call as a code 19, what the last speaker was just talking about, seeing an officer just sitting, not engaging. It's the presence, being present there. If they go and they arrest somebody, now you no longer have that presence. So throughout the shift, people are assigned to these code 19s for presence, while others are doing proactive things. So there's a lot of different moving parts to it. And we do have walking beat officers that are down there every day. Those officers are trained for the bicycles, like the deputy had mentioned. With the uniforms is still a work in process for that.
So we talked about uniforms in May. It's now the middle of July. How long does it take to get uniforms?
This is not on me. I have no idea.
I'm just asking.
I know. A rhetorical question. I agree. That's something I can't answer.
Who's in charge of getting uniforms? Maybe we can ask them or Mayor Wu. I mean, ultimately, everything reports to her. How long?
Andy, I think we should ask for the drug unit and the gang unit.
We do have several drug units down there.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's just local Boston police drug units. Kind of like you had mentioned, Senator, about a bigger, broad.
Yeah, I think I think that's the way.
See, the National Guard called in. Everyone is saying we don't have enough people. Maybe we should ask the mayor.
I think the first. No, I think the first request.
Guard.
Yeah, and I've said that in the past too, and the state of emergency, and because I think you do need to overwhelm the situation. What the sergeant saying is they have the dedicated folks that are here in D4, and they're beefed up more than other parts of the city, to be fair. But in order to change the dynamic on the ground, it's got to be, we got to overwhelm it a little bit, in my opinion, with extras like the citywide drug squad helping out, the citywide gang unit helping out, the state police, forces and MBTA forces supporting, BPD's efforts to, by the way, as was mentioned earlier, the folks we're talking about, they're not dumb. They also know when it's hot, they get the hell out of Dodge. Where they go next is anyone's guess. But when a message is sent, and we're doing this all the time, at the beginning of the summer, whether it's warrant sweeps or efforts like this, because then it's the place that they know that there's going to be no tolerance. They're going to be arrested, brought to county jail, and that whole process begins, and which is an unpleasant experience. So I think that, the National Guard will require an invitation of the mayor and the commissioner for the National Guard. That doesn't happen very often. It happens in friendly fashion for the marathon. We can't even get it for the St. Patrick's Day parade to assist. So, I don't know what it would take, but if you call for a state of emergency, anything's possible. And what they have the tools to do now is the sergeant saying they got enough. They have probably the max for the district support that can be marshaled, an additional crew that may be coming on. But in order to strike this, you need a strike force and you need help from what you're doing day to day that I think can be and that's a request of the man and the commissioner. And they're effective at this. They've been doing it for a very long time. They have the support to do it. It will have an impact. Now, it can't happen all day, every day, forever. But I do think that if we're feeling, and I felt it myself at Toro 2 weeks ago, the boiling point, the water's over the pot. I think we should be asking for that and asking for it now.
Thank you. Paul, and then I have a question for Tierney when he's done.
Hey, Andy. We're new. My wife and I just moved in Worcester Square 6 months ago. We did not see this activity when we moved in. Of course, it was wintertime, and it's pretty shocking. And I appreciate all you neighbors, coming in and sharing with the officials and the police, the reality. I just have a question for the police and for the officials on the call, Senator Collins, et cetera. What can we do as residents to help the police do their jobs? That's question one. And question two is, what can we do to protect ourselves when these people get a little outside the lines and they start coming in our homes?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be a good neighbor, to be a good partner with us, we ask for 911 calls, and I know there's been, some talk of the lack of response times, because we do ask everyone to call 911. So we do have a high call volume. I don't want to see anyone engage on the street with these individuals. They assault us. They resist arrest often. Officers have gotten injured. We did have a taser deployment down there recently. To protect your home, like I mentioned earlier, different things to mitigate, fortifying your house. If somebody does enter your house, you need to protect yourself. It's your home. You have the right to protect yourself.
Help us understand how far you can go. I mean, do I need to go buy a gun and keep it in the house? I'm not a gun person, but I'm thinking about becoming one now.
You have the right to file for a firearms license and to purchase a firearm. You have that right. I have if I wasn't a police officer, I would have one.
Okay.
Everyone has that.
Yeah, and the same with, pepper spray. I mean, look, the public health officials, this is where you gotta make the comparison. I don't think people get this. We literally ran out of Narcan at pharmacies in Boston. Think about that. We had them stockpile it by law, and they ran out of it. This is the approach. Calling all citizens, please arm yourselves with Narcan. This is why we're literally saving 90% of people. And I do believe we're in an era where you have to find a way to defend yourself. If we're not going to have a fundamental change in intervention at the hospital, and this is going to continue to become the epidemic that's just growing with the type of people and the type of behavior and the violence. Yeah, you have every right, and as the sergeant says, you should think about anything you can do to protect you and your family. If somebody is in that insidious mindset that's going to invade your home, all bets are off. But the fact that you feel that way, I think, makes it clear that we have a couple of things we have to do. One, immediately, as fast as possible, and I'm going as fast as I can with legislation. Executive authority to do this tomorrow to change discharge policy at the hospitals in Boston. Number one. Number two, support an increase to support the District 4, D4, in what they're already trying to do with extra citywide units to strike down at the growth in the South End and arrest people. And that, I know, people saying, oh, don't waste your time. Like, I think we're going to have this thing resolved with the bar advocates very soon, but it's going to be very soon where they're going to be moved to other courts and other jurisdictions where we can do this, like Bristol County, who don't let people off the hook that easy, like Norfolk County and other counties across Massachusetts. So I think that's what we have to do immediately, which we can do tomorrow. I mean, I would support, bringing the National Guard in. I think there are others who would not, and others who have the power to do that. So I would just engage the city, engage the state leaders about making changes and significant changes to support the police, because that is a fundamental change. And the police don't have to, aren't gonna have to respond to this. They live it every day. That there was an erosion of support from public officials over the last number of years. And now they're asking the police to do everything, even beyond the things that they typically do. I mean, they were delivering ballots last year, for crying out loud. So, I think we have to be mindful of the fact that you can't do everything. And, obviously, if people are invading your personal space, you got to defend yourself. But that shouldn't be the case. We need to make these policy changes about discharging 2,500 people to the streets of the South End every year who are repeat overdose patients, and also supporting the increased response to enhance what the police are already doing with the citywide units, in my opinion. Save for that, state of emergency, call the National Guard. But I think, we should be able to do this.
Senator. Thank you, Senator. Andy, has anyone ever put together a neighborhood watch around here?
We have not. I'm personally, I confronted some people last week. I think that was a mistake. I was with Brian, and they're dangerous. I mean, unless I was armed and trained, I'm normally I think that would be okay, but you need a lot of people. It's something we can talk about, but
well, the watch, what I mean by watch is that we have someone designated to keep an eye on things and then have an escalation process, not with the people, but with the city, with the police, right? So just
reach out.
I don't know.
Fine, and let's talk about it. I think that could work potentially, but let's talk about it. I do want to, but yeah, please reach out to me offline. You have my email.
Can I just say something real quick,
No.
Andy?
Sure.
The Dick's Sporting Goods in Boylston Street does carry pepper spray if you wanted to purchase it, $10 to $20, and you don't need any type of firearms ID to hold it. You just have to be of age.
And what is the liability for discharging it? I mean,
If you're in defense of yourself, nothing. If you're going around spraying people, it's assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. If you're the aggressor, but if you're doing everything you can to retreat and get away from the attack, and you're retreating and use it, that's defending yourself. If you go looking for something, that's different. The whole totality of circumstances and every situation, every incident, the whole totality of circumstances come into play. But with the removal, it used to be classified as ammunition. If you possessed it, we could charge you with the state law of ammunition. That's no longer the case. So you have the right to purchase it and kind of research on your own and what legalities you have to defend yourself.
Thank you. So this is a question for Tierney. This is something that Steve and I have been personally asking the Public Health Commission for I'm going to guess 10 years at least. No, maybe 9 years. I started in 2016. Steve may have started earlier. Right now, to build on what Senator Collins is saying, not only do we discharge the people at BMC, but one block away, we give out all the needles, or the vast majority of the needles in the city, at AHOPE. And we've been asking to decentralize that. Again, it's not going to solve the problem citywide, and I hate to push our problem somewhere else, but we are desperate right now. And is there anything that the BPHC can do to just decentralize the needle distribution, let alone harm reduction? To me is getting people into treatment, and I would love to see them come out and join with us to support the recovery campus, but that's a longer term thing. Ideally, tomorrow we could decentralize the needle distribution without additional money. And is that something that you're thinking about? We've asked for 10 years and haven't gotten a whole lot of movement on it.
No, thank you for that, Andy. And first, for folks who might not know me, my name is Tierney Flaherty, and I'm with the Boston Public Health Commission. Happy to be here with you tonight. Less happy on our, topic of discussion. So first, just wanted Andy to mention on the recovery campus idea. We were present at the meeting last week. We're joining in that effort, so we're definitely looking forward to continued discussions on that. Regarding clean needle distribution, so a couple things. One is that, in coordination with the CRT and to kind of further the mayor's goal of ending congregate outdoor use, we've changed a little bit of the way that we distribute harm reduction supplies. You might be aware that we're no longer doing that outdoors. Our outreach folks aren't doing that. Instead, we are trying to get people to come indoors to get those materials and to make it easier for us to connect them with services and get them on the path to recovery. So that's one change that we have already made.
But they're coming to 760 or whatever number it is, Albany Street. So it's not really a mystery why they're here, because that's what they have to come here to get the needles. So that's what I'm saying is, could you do some of it at City Hall? Could you do some of it at community health centers and other parts of the city? Really any city-owned building. They could do it at police stations. The willingness. It seems to me it's the willingness to do it, not the unavailability of places that is the issue, and that's what I'm asking. Quite frankly, I'm not sure that I mentioned this to Kelly when she mentioned that to me. I'm not really sure that sort of forcing everyone in the city to come into my neighborhood to get needles is something that I understand why you're doing it, but distribute it, and then I'd be in support of it. It's not distributed right now.
Right. And I mean, I think there's a lot of people on the call, right? We all understand the value of clean needles and why we do that. What you're thinking about is kind of what are the mechanics, what are the operations, how can we do it in a way that kind of minimizes the impact to the community? And I think that's a conversation we're very willing to have. One thing I did, though, want to make sure that folks know is that AHOPE is only one of many organizations in the city that are distributing needles or that run a needle exchange. there are already multiple sites throughout the city and other neighborhoods. So, and that's not meant to kind of be a rebuttal to you, Andy. I just want folks to understand that.
Can you tell me what percentage of needles is given out at AHOPE versus the other places?
That's actually a great question. We can probably dig up that number. Let me go back and find that out.
That
I'd
would
be
be
interested myself.
My understanding, it was, you know, roughly 90%. Yeah, there's something in Fenway and whatnot, but they're tiny little places, and that's, you know, part of it. But anyway, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, or seeing BPHC next week at the next recovery meeting.
I apologize. I know that my colleague was there. I was away on vacation up in Maine. I briefly escaped, but I'll be at the next one.
That's fine. Brian, you have your hand up, and then JP, and then Michelle.
So given the necessity here, are the police going to start maybe hosting hand-to-hand combat training, how to defend against a weapon? It's becoming increasingly necessary. I would have probably been in the emergency room if I hadn't had some training 10 or 15 years ago. Otherwise, multiple people would have gotten hurt, and not just my back. We would have been stabbed. So seriously, the police probably need to start training people on how to defend themselves. If there's not enough police and the police don't show up, people need to know how to handle themselves in these kind of situations. Unfortunately, it's the reality we are living with now, and it's one of the things that probably needs to happen immediately. The other thing that probably needs to happen immediately is AHOPE needs to shut down. I've never said this up until now, but this is the time. If the police can't keep up with the calls, and we're here debating, do we need the National Guard to defend us? AHOPE needs to shut down, and take 90% of the needle capacity, take it in tents and move into different places. Do what you got to do, but overnight, just shut AHOPE down. We already have enough services in the South End. No one can keep up. Find new locations for it for the summer until this becomes a habitable area again, because right now it's not. People are asking about like what weapons they're allowed to carry. That's telling you how far this situation has gotten out of control. Like, to Andy's concern, like what's the liability for carrying, pepper spray? You can get insurance against it, but as Narduza said, if you are defending yourself and retreating, that's roughly what the law says. And pepper spray is more risky than pepper foam. So like this kind of like stuff is not knowledge people would typically have in Boston, and I feel like we need to be trained in this if this is the reality we're living with.
Thank you, Brian. JP.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have hit a lot of the points that I wanted to raise, but yeah, it sounds like it's in our hands. And so, yeah, if we could start having like a neighborhood watch and like training on pepper spray, pepper foam, tasers, like I'd feel more comfortable and I'd go to those trainings. But like, I just want the elected representatives and the city employees and service providers to understand that that is where we're at. That like, yes, you're working hard, but like Brian said, we're getting overwhelmed. The services that the city is providing to protect us are also getting overwhelmed. And so if the result is hide in your home and you might have someone break into it, there's a problem. And yeah, like, what is that next step? Do we I don't know what the answer is, but hoping and praying that it goes away until we can pop our head out, it's not enough. Thanks. Sorry. What can we do, I guess, is my question.
Thank you, JP. Michelle. Michelle, you're muted.
It occurred to me that on Tuesday, August 6th, they're having National Night Out at the Castle Square. And I was wondering if that would be a good venue for people to show up, for neighbors to show up, and maybe find out from the police, like, you know, what should we do? Like, the ideas that we're discussing here. Some people are concerned about whether they should get defensive weapons. Some people are concerned about what can we do to support you. Some people would like to see more of a presence, and those are all things that we could talk about directly with the police at National Night Out. Although personally, I mean, I feel funny saying that because I won't be able to be there because I'm in the hospital, and I think I'm going to be in the hospital for the rest of my life. It feels like the rest of my life, but if I could be there, I would show up and say, you know, this is not getting better. This is getting worse, and what can we do?
I think that's a great idea. I expect Mayor Wu will be there. She's been there in the past. I've spoken to her a number of times at National Night Out. I'd forgotten about it, so thank you for mentioning it. And I'll send an email out encouraging people to, you know, Mayor Wu heard this at the end of June. I don't think it was quite as desperate at that time, and we were a little bit hopeful, but I think it might be helpful for her to hear it again in August in person.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, it's not on their radar every year. I mean, you know, it gets good attendance, but I think there are a lot of people who aren't that aware of it a lot of the time. And it's a really good chance to meet our officers, and in a lighthearted setting where people are having fun and stuff like that. But you also can engage with community service officers, and you said the mayor is going to be there. And yes, we can ask pointed questions and try to get some answers and things like that. And if a lot of people show up, it makes a statement, it sends a signal.
Thank you. That was a very good suggestion. Helene, Senator Collins, and then Bill.
I just wanted to say that we used to have a neighborhood watch 20, 30 years ago. We used to walk in twos through the neighborhood at night. And then I wanted to ask Brian, when he was attacked, had you been confronting them?
No, we were trying to leave.
You were trying to leave? You were trying to leave and they just attacked you?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's let Bill go first, and then Senator Collins can reply, so that we could hear Bill first, and then you could reply to him if you want.
I'll be short. My name's Bill Smith, 42 East Springfield Street. I just wanted to reinforce the density of drug use, and really, I don't see a discernible change in terms of that in the past couple weeks since meeting with Mayor Wu. Just for example, I think it was just a couple days ago it was Monday when I went to work. There was someone and these 3 incidents of drug use were not needles, but they were smoking out of a clear glass, I suppose, crack pipe, I don't know, an opioid on our stoop. And I asked them to leave. They didn't. Eventually, when they finished, they moved on. I'm in an upper unit, so I'm shouting down from the window. Then I run into them. I actually drove to work. So Harrison at the 719 alley entrance, another individual. There were 2 on our stoop. This was an individual there doing the same, smoking rather than, but obviously they're getting these drugs, not needles even. And purchasing them. I've seen that. And then I turn Harrison to Mass Ave, several stoops down, a woman doing the same there. So I think the density and lack of concern for the residents or the ownership they feel of the user's feel of the streets and the stoops is really threatening, frankly. And the second is I am the one that called about the break-in. I called the police about the break-in this past Friday early evening when I got home from work. I was on my back deck, which is an upper deck, and I was looking down from 42 on into 44, and that was the woman breaking into the unit, the lower unit, apparently. I said, "You don't live there." I shouted at her to stop. That didn't get her to stop. She was using some blunt instrument, pounding on the door, kicking at it. I do know the woman that lives there, so I did call the police. The response was actually very quick, maybe because of that, the report of the crime in progress. I guess I've learned later that she was actually maybe living there and had locked herself out, which she shouted back up at me. I've locked myself out. I mean, but not in a very aggressive manner. But I was impressed with their response, the police response, and then the son showed up. It was his mother's home, and he showed up in her absence while the police were there. I'm, however, really disappointed that she's not only associated with another similar crime in the neighborhood, but on the street and not behind bars. I did take a photograph and I did send that to the son. The police had my name and number. They asked for that when you're on the 911. So no one reached out to me if that were of any use. But I just thought I'd mention those two issues to help reinforce.
Can I just address something I haven't brought up to this group yet? About 10 years ago, one of these community service officers, Richie Lito, who's since passed, had an Operation Safe Alley. Our civilian had brought this up, and she's going to start this operation. So you may be seeing this soon, Operation Safe Alley, where the District 4 Community Service identify alleys for cleanup. We work alongside Public Works, ISD, the neighbors, go up and down alleys, kind of addressing any issues that may occur, and kind of a way for the neighbors to show ownership of the alley with us. And then after we do our operation, we would meet somewhere, like probably the park in Worcester Square, for like a pizza afterwards. One other thing that I just got confirmation from the sergeant in the Bureau of Community Engagement. We're going to do a coffee with the Crime Stoppers on Tuesday at Worcester Square Park. So the Crime Stoppers unit is going to come out and kind of explain what their role is in reporting crimes. District 4 community service officers will be there. We'll have other officers there to speak with, but it'll be a presentation. It'll be an opportunity for the officers to talk with everybody. So I don't know exactly what time, maybe 9, 10 a.m. It'll be a coffee with Crime Stoppers, but the District 4 community service and some other officers will be there as well.
Is it? I mean, many of us work. I no longer do, which is great. But many of us work. I'm wondering. I remember those things with Richie Lito, and they were very helpful. I would love to see them start up again. I don't know enough about Crime Stoppers. I'd love to learn about it, but I'm wondering if it makes sense either to do it at 9, but also at maybe 6 or 7, so that people who work can attend, or maybe instead of. I love the idea of it, but it virtually eliminates almost everyone with kids or anything else because they're probably working.
I get that. And I think part of that is to the presence. So I have no problem asking for that. An evening event, Operation Safe Alley, we could do in the evenings easily, rather than the daytime. But the coffee with the Crime Stoppers, I don't know what their shifts are. That's not my unit. I don't know how they operate. But I'd have to touch with Sergeant Provenzano with that.
If you can send me some information, I'll send it out. I also want to send out something to, talk about Paul's idea of the of the Crime Watch, and I don't know if it's the same thing with a different name or whatnot. So, you know, that is something we can look at. Senator Collins, I'm going to ask you to just let Cinda go first, and then you can talk. And so, Cinda, hopefully you can make it quick. You're muted if you're speaking.
I'm curious to know what is going to be happening at the Shattuck Hospital, which is going to be opening probably pretty soon. It was supposed to have been opened in 2024 in the spring, and I think now it's coming closer to being finished. Our services, does anyone know, are there going to be services or outpatient services for the homeless and the community, the unfortunate drug community that is dependent upon these services, so that this problem that many, and I do understand it from the point of view of how traumatic it has become for a lot of the residents here in the South End to even I've, been, to live in an area that is just somewhat unpredictable in terms of your safety. But not so much also the safety, just the tragedy of seeing what has happened to these people, some of these people's lives. It is heartbreaking, no doubt. But what kind of services would be offered or might be offered to this this particular community, and there's a possibility that it's going to impact further down Harrison around East Newton Street. Does anyone know?
I can talk about that one, Andy. So the services that are currently at the Shattuck building in Jamaica Plain are supposed to be replaced at this new facility. Started before my time representing the South End, and I know there's a lot of concerns about that. What I'd like to do is have the State Health and Human Services, the State Department of Correction, and the providers that are planned sometime in the future, and have them in here to tell us what they're doing exactly, if anything's different than what it was before. I also think that maybe we ask, I know the DA's office and the DA will be at the National Night Out, which is a good time to get his ear, but maybe we can invite them to, with the sergeant's blessing, invite the DA and or his team to some of these other activities, so they maintain their awareness. I think there's been an effort downtown, an amalgamation of residents and businesses, and obviously the city stepping up down there. That's made an impact. I also think we may want to invite the trial court administrator, and the chief justice. So they're on the street, and they've been working with us on some of these changes in the courts with respect to how to deal with remote petitions and evaluations. They know how serious this issue is, but I think having them out in the street, so the chief justice and or her team, and the court administrator and his team can bring that back to the Suffolk County BMC crew, that this is something that we need to know how serious these, hearing, Brian's instance and others about how, they're preparing for home invasions on a regular basis and attacks on the street. So it's not sort of put in the police, and I think you heard this earlier, like they got thousands of stuff all over the city. They're dealing with different levels of violence and issues, but the volume across all of it is not insignificant. And sometimes they can get, the trial court, I believe, like any other bureaucratic entity, can get a little desensitized to how traumatic this situation is, and how unsustainable it is, and how dangerous it is. So I think not just having the DA's office, who I think is already coming from that perspective, but the officials from the trial court, we would like to, with the sergeant's blessing in the community, invite them out. But have them from HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, Department of Corrections, and the providers come on this meeting, maybe the next meeting that's being held.
I love that idea.
And Shattuck, by the way, the Taj Mahal, we're gonna but there's no third party, even though there's this notion that we're gonna put it out to bid, one bidder. It's a public investment. Like treatment is a public investment. It's not, I wonder if there's a private entity who finds a return on investment in this space. It's a publicly subsidized exercise, even if it's privately managed, which is most likely what it'll be. I think we should be taking a look at, and I talked to Rep. Moran on this, whether we ask DCAM to do an evaluation of what would it cost and how soon could we retrofit existing buildings at current Shattuck and reopen it for treatment. If this is all about being decommissioned and it's still there, instead of knocking it down, costing a fortune, because here's what we learned last week. We heard finally, I think that was a unanimous recognition, and I was striking at the meeting last week for the working group. We, basically admitted that Long Island's 10 years away, a decade. That was pretty much the mission. 5 years to get a bridge going, and then whatever, in 5 years in expenses that would require city, state, and federal investment to build that campus because of the conditions that it's in and the status of it all. Mind you, if you call for a state of emergency, you can fast track a lot of things to provide that. But I think that's something that we should be going back to the drawing board on, and something that I know Steve Fox had talked about probably a start of a decade ago, is how to retool Shattuck, existing buildings. You don't want it to be unhealthy for people, but what would it really take time-wise and cost? Because we need something now. We don't need to talk about the shiny object that's going to come about in a decade. This situation is untenable. So I think that the community here should be thinking about that. What's something we're thinking about. With your support, we would pursue that.
I love that idea. I love many of the things you talked about. I'm going to answer Cinda's question, and Steve can call me on it if my memory fails me. And this is not the Shattuck and JP, this is the Shattuck around the corner from Cinda. So they gave us their assurance that all of the services would be inpatient services. And not that we had any leverage, but they did make that promise to us back. It was probably, I don't know, more than 5 years ago now. I don't even remember when it was, but that was the plan at the time. It would be great to reconfirm that is still the plan, but that was something that we begged them for, that no outpatient services because it's just too much. And Steve, you're muted if you're talking.
Andy, just with the exception of Department of Corrections that are brought in from the outside.
Oh, right, but yeah, they're under guard. Yeah, I didn't want to get into the details, but yes, if someone needs services from the prison, they will be brought under guard, and arguably that's outpatient, but it's not unsupervised, which I think is what she's concerned about.
Yeah, that's secure facility.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's been, we're over time. Does anyone have anything else? I am going to follow up on a number of these initiatives. Probably most important is the National Night Out, because I think Mayor Wu needs to hear it again. I keep hearing we don't have enough resources. We're not going to get many more police resources. That's a matter of prioritization. To me, it's not a matter of resources. There's plenty of police all over the city. It's a matter of prioritization. If we just don't have enough, then maybe we do need the National Guard. Maybe we should talk to her about that.
There's a motion in the chat for that I'm put in, and it's got a lot of thumbs up already. We might have enough people to just.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. Mike Firestone asked me to keep him abreast, and I will he will be getting an email tomorrow to sort of summarizing what we talked about today. Don't want anything to be a surprise. And, you know, but if any, I also do want to follow up on Sergeant Narduzzo's, you know, offer to have Crime Stoppers and the redoing the things that Richie Lito did. I wish I could reinstate him. He was just such an asset to anyone who knows him. I think really, I use the word loved him. I mean, he was great. And if we could restart some of his initiatives, you know, that would be wonderful. You know, so I will follow, and I also want to follow up on Paul's email. And if anyone else wants to learn about what he thinks about what he was thinking for Crime Watch, you know, let me know, and then maybe we can have a Zoom meeting and Paul can describe it. And again, you know, maybe we could do that right after the Crime Stoppers and see how much the Crime Stoppers is similar. But still, all of that said, these are helpful. I don't think it's going to take the place of we just need a lot more police presence until we can get those other things. You know, I think we all know that that will not solve the problem, but right now we're really suffering, and we just can't continue in the state that we are. People are talking about different weapons. That is not a good situation for anybody. But that's kind of where the neighborhood feels like we are now. So, you know, this may have been an unpleasant meeting, but I think we needed to have it. And, you know, I thank you for attending and for your patience. Does anyone have anything else before we adjourn?
Do we just vote on it? And, you know,
what is there to vote? What do you, I'm not sure what you're asking for, Brian.
take a look in the chat. I made a motion as an example text so we were all on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can vote on it. If Jenny, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, you know, this meeting had over 50 or 60 people in it at the height of when people were engaged. So I think it's to take a vote when there are only 32 left and I don't even know how many of the 32 of us are members of Worcester Square Area Neighborhood Association to even be able to vote. So I don't think that it's responsible to put forward a motion to vote when it wasn't in the agenda that there was going to be a vote. I think that's not appropriate.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to let Mike Firestone know. We have Read AI, so we have a recording of the meeting, we have a transcription of the meeting, and we have a summary of the meeting. And I'm just going to let him know what we were talking about. I think that's probably enough right now.
Yeah.
If we need to have a vote, we can figure out how to do that. But he will know that this is where the neighborhood feels that we are, that multiple people brought up different weapons, including Sergeant Narduzzo with the pepper spray. And I'm not saying that this is just where we feel like we are right now. And, you know, the video that I sent out in the meeting invitation about that beating on Harrison Ave is frightening. And if anyone doesn't feel like frightened from that, I'm not sure what would make you frightened. This is what's going on, you know, in our literally in our neighborhood right now. So,
who's Mike Firestone?
Mike Firestone is Mayor Wu's chief strategist or whatever. He's sort of.
Okay, that's all right. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.